Welcome back, everyone, to another episode in the Future of Work series. Joined here with our CEO and co-founder of Briq, Bassem Hamdy.
Thanks, Ellis.
Bassem, thanks for sticking with us. We've talked through some of the kind of, we're kind of working our way through that money workflow, right?
Yep.
And understanding how the future of work will impact them, right? Not only the workflows, the processes themselves, but the people that do these processes as well. So we've covered project initiation, estimate to budget, project forecasting to WIP. This next element is one that's extremely important and really demonstrates how important it is to think ahead and think for the future of the business. And that is, of course, revenue and backlog planning.
Yeah, and this is one that you talk about at most companies, it not being a workflow. Right. It's
something that's done maybe once a year.
Twice a year maybe, and the CFO compiles it or the COO compiles it from information that they know of, generally from that WIP schedule we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
Where they're taking dollars, and for those that are learning about construction, I know the construction people know this, but they're taking dollars and they're spreading it into the future to say, what is my future cash flow going to look like? What is my future revenue going to look like? What is my future work in place going to look like? And they take that and they spread it out, and that's why it takes so long. And they generally do it in Excel. And then they base a lot of very strategic decisions on it, like how much they're going to pay for bonding, what is their size of the line of credit they need. All of these things are generated from this one schedule. Now, the reality is, Ellis, is that people come in and go, well, that's not a workflow. That's an Excel spreadsheet in our company.
It's a model.
It's a model. We do it once and twice a year. But I'll tell you, ultimately, this is the lifeblood of your company. It's saying how much money you're going to make 30, 60, 90 days, 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters out. That changes the way you run your business. Now, the reason why they only do it twice a year is it just takes too long.
Right.
That's the big problem. It just takes too long. That's the big problem. And the reality is that you do need to see this as a workflow, because the knowledge needed to spread the dollars, the knowledge needed to understand what is in pipeline, the knowledge needed is distributed throughout the organization. So we talk about the future of work. This series is called The Future of Work. The future of work is thinking, not doing manual tasks. Because when you really think about that revenue schedule I said that somebody does twice a year, 95% of that work is collecting data. 5% is thinking about it.
Yeah.
And that really is what needs to change.
Right, 100%. So when we think about the future of work and the people involved in the revenue forecast, why is it so hard to do properly today? You kind of alluded to 95% of the time collecting the data. What makes it? Why is it done so infrequently, and why is it hard to do?
Let's break the workflow into 2 buckets. The first workflow is backlog, truly awarded backlog. That biggest problem with the awarded backlog section of a revenue forecast is that it relies on a WIP that probably is being done in Excel. And it relies on a start and end date that's probably sitting in the operations system or a scheduling system. And it relies on potential change orders that may be sitting in Excel that are going to push out that schedule. So if we think about that part of it, I just named 3 of probably a dozen data points I need to do a proper backlog forecast.
Yeah.
So if all of that was in one place, if that was all being collected by these magic hands, by these little smarter computer programs that go do the work on behalf of you to collect the data and then just present it to you, think about how much time you would have. You could do backlog forecasting weekly if you wanted to, because all of the work driven is coming from the other systems. Now, the key here is, this is the part I like to talk about, because I think this is the true future of work, is the predictive analytics.
Yeah.
The idea here is that ultimately we have this brain that knows everything your system has ever done, your company has ever done. That knows the delivery methods, how long a project managers work there, which superintendents work with what customers and subcontractors better. They know this. And as that matrix begins to get formed, it's going to help you spread those dollars in what we call time travel, which is you can travel future in time and get a very nice, accurate picture of where you might be. And you can travel back to track the accuracy of where you were versus your forecasts.
Right.
So the idea is that you can slide in and out. The thing here is that, just like I mentioned in earlier cases, the machine has to be given time to learn. And that's a big part of time travel. I call this AI light right now. I think the models that we've built for specific clients are great. They're moving towards a very, very nice level of accuracy. There's still a lot of learnings to do. This is more of a future state for most companies, but at least setting the groundwork with these smart curves based on delivery method or location or project manager years of service can draw out the remaining balance of a revenue forecast across months all the way through to the end.
Wow.
That's key.
I mean, it's a very difficult, even just, adding another column for another period, right?
Yes.
If you have one for, contract value, one for, for gross profit, doing that for another year just takes a lot of time on top of it.
It's all time consuming. And that's why backlog forecasts don't get done. That's why your bonding company's mad at you. That's why there's a bunch of other reasons.
Right.
Now let's take the second half of that workflow.
Yeah.
The second half of that workflow is jobs that are pending, that are your bidding. But there's also a part of it where you're going to win jobs you don't know about today. So it's that level of numbers that say, hey, what about these other things below the line? We're in January. You're not going to win another project that you haven't heard of in December? Of course you are. So taking that additional experience, using those smart curves to say, you know what? 20% of your volume comes from projects you don't know about in this month, and just producing that carryover line for you. That's how you change how your business runs. That's how everybody has that knowledge, right? Ultimately, the same problem that we have with backlog forecasting is that the pieces of the puzzle are everywhere. Business developers, estimators, project managers that are bidding jobs, all of their information is scattered all over your organization. And again, just now imagine a world where that magic hand comes in, reaches in, and builds that playing field for you, and then ultimately spreads it out. Now, you're the final gatekeeper as a CFO or as a president to analyze this data. But ultimately, 90% of the work is off your plate and you can just focus on knowledge. We have impacts, Ellis, where our clients are getting better bonding rates because their revenue forecasts, their backlog forecasts are just that much more accurate.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the other thing is, we always make the point, it's like we're forecasting revenue twice a year, but projects are going on all the time.
Yes.
It's kind of a crazy idea that we're really only stopping twice a year to look at, hey, what is my revenue going to look like? But am I hitting the numbers that I thought I was?
Yeah. Without AI, technology does not move at the speed of construction. That's reality. Technology is like the slow moving, moment. It's like this lame horse going down the racetrack. And then you got a Kentucky Derby winner going around and around, lapping him, with construction projects finishing all the time. Construction is a full contact sport.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting back and thinking, let's take it a little slower, you don't have time to take it slower. You need technology that makes it faster. And that's what the future of work is.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about what that workflow, both backlog and revenue schedule, looks like in the kind of in this third wave of digitization of the future of work.
Yeah.
Talk us through what that looks like today.
I think the key here is, just like we talked about with WIP, it's the generation of what looks like Excel automatically created with the correct data from multiple sources being coordinated on that canvas. So having all of those individual projects, having that projects you don't know about yet number being all coordinated, and then presented to the human. Remember, we talked about augmentation. The human is now being augmented. All that data, right place, right data, right time, make right decision. That's what's happening. So all that time you spend calling the project manager, downloading data, guessing at some, hokey regression analysis you've built in Excel to spread that information out. All of it is presented to you. Now, all you're doing is thinking.
Right.
That's what we talk about. The future work is more human. It's not less human. It's more human because it's unnatural. It makes people unhappy to have to go and collect all this data. And then they're exhausted by the time they collect it. They spend 5 minutes analyzing it and they move on.
Yeah, I think one of the big things in this future of work world is that the roles are going to change. And I was, speaking to a CFO of a large general contractor this week, and he said, we're talking about how do we detect those anomalies? How do we flag those top 5 performing projects?
Yep.
And he's like, so Ellis, once we've gotten them, we've identified them, what do we do next? It's like, that's a great question.
Yeah.
That's where the thinking comes in. And a lot of times it's like, as a CFO, I never had the time.
Isn't that crazy?
do
It's like,
something.
what do I do
Do
now?
what I do now.
Yeah, it's like,
You know?
I know something's going wrong. Well,
What do I do?
change.
Right. What do I do next?
Yeah.
And that's going to be part of
You know
this
what
future
doesn't
work.
affect change? That's like kind of the thing. They're like, oh, what do I do? Well, should I just change the number in Excel? No. Call the person that's causing the issue or focus on that project. Right now, you can't focus on any of them because you cannot see the forest for the trees. That's what you do is you focus on the work where it needs to be done. You prioritize. It helps you prioritize. It helps you drive your efforts because time is limited. It helps you drive your efforts to the jobs and projects that need the most, not the ones that are yelling the most.
Right.
That's
and so it helps you do what matters. Let's have a look in Briq and look at an example of what this would look like as we just described.
All right. Hey, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about revenue forecasting using the Briq tool. So we typically sort of hear of revenue forecasting coming in 3 buckets. You're going to have your active projects, anything that's currently in progress. You're going to have any jobs that are in your backlog, maybe things that are contracted and haven't started yet. And then you're going to have your opportunities. So what you're looking at here is really us marrying those 3 together. You have your active projects, you have those opportunities. Your active projects could come from right from your ERP. They could flow over from your WIP. Your opportunities could either be maintained in a Briq workbook, or they could actually just come right out of the CRM because we'll be connected to those systems. So what we're able to do with this tool is we're able to take values, in this example, revenue and fee, and we're able to forecast and spread them out over time automatically based off a few different pieces of criteria. So the first one is that we have a start and end date up here. That's going to constitute my full time horizon for the forecast. You'll see I'm going 6/1/23. I'm going out to 6/1/22. So I'm 6/1/23 all the way out to 6/1/2024. So if I come up and I say, hey, instead of a 1-year forecast, let's make this a 2-year. If you want to sort of think about the way you might do this in Excel, you might have to create a bunch of additional columns. With this tool, all you're going to do, you'll come up, you'll recalculate. And what you'll see here is we're going to recognize a change in that criteria, and we're going to automatically add all of those 2025 buckets. So that's sort of the first piece of criteria. It's just going to be my overall time horizon. The second piece is going to be, I'm going to have a start and end date on a specific job or a specific record. So you'll see sort of on the active side, I have a locked in start date. I'm able to edit the estimated end date. Opportunities wise, I might say, hey, this job's actually going to start in 1/1/2024. It's going to go out to 1/1/2025. And let's say there's a 100% chance we win this job. Thinking these are probably going to come in at an 8% margin, a 10% margin. You're able to play around with these things, right? You're able to sort of make modifications to all the different pieces of criteria. So I have my overall time horizon. I have the time horizon for a specific record. I have my values, and then I have the curve type. So you'll see here, these are all defaulted to a bell curve. But if I want to come in here and I want to say, hey, let's actually evenly spread this job. Let's do more of a front-loaded spread here. As I'm adjusting all this criteria, again, I come up, I recalculate. The tool takes into account all of that adjusted criteria, and it's going to reforecast out and do that math for me. So you'll see this 63 million bucks, this is now going to be an even straight line of about 4.9 million month over month. So those are more our default options for being able to do forecasting: front load, even load, use a bell curve. But what we've seen is a lot of projects just typically don't run perfectly in line with those. So what we're also able to do is we can create custom S curves. So what we're able to do with these custom S curves is, using our curves tool, we're able to actually ingest your historical data based off a bucket. So in this example, I'm looking historically at my federal jobs, my biotech, healthcare, K-12 projects. I'm able to curate this historical data set. And then once I upload that into the Briq curve tool, what I'm able to do is I'm able to get a custom curve based off that historical information, which I can then actually apply within this workbook. So for my opportunities, if I know I have a K-12 job here, I have a healthcare job here, I'm able to use these custom curves to then forecast out according to that past history. So again, there's a few different components here. We want to make it really dynamic, really easy for teams to come in and do their forecasting. We want you to be able to use your history within the tool. And ultimately, we want to provide the ability for you to get in and do different types of scenario planning. So I might say, hey, best case scenario for the business is that we win all these jobs next year. Worst case might be that we win. So essentially, I'm able to create these different scenarios. This job might come in at a higher margin. I'm making these adjustments. I'm recalculating. And then what I'm able to do is you'll see in the top right here, I have this option to commit. So when I commit, what I'm doing is essentially I'm taking a snapshot and I'm storing this information within the database. If I open up my revenue dashboard, you'll see right off the bat, this dashboard is going to be blank just because I haven't committed any scenarios yet. So I'm going to have a lot of 0 values here. But when I come over and I actually come here and I commit, you'll see that in real time, the analysis portion of our analytics is going to update in real time as I'm storing that best case scenario. So I'll be able to come over, I'll be able to refresh. From an analytic perspective, those are really going to be the cherry on top, where if I want to do different types of slicing and dicing, if I want to get into different levels of detail, compare scenarios, I'm going to be able to do that all within this dashboard tool as well.
Awesome. So exactly what we're talking about. Excel-like interface.
It almost
plugging
looks
the
too
numbers in.
simple, actually.
It really does.
There's a lot of,
Right.
there's so much simmering underneath the system. Just think about how long it took for us to train bots, these little computer programs, to go out and build that workflow, to build that Excel spreadsheet, to build those smart curves. That was a lot of effort. It's one of our earliest automations, and it's amazing that at the end of it, you look at it and you go, yeah, well, that looks easy. I've been in this industry 24 years. I've never seen it automated. I've never seen it more accurate and more timely than I see here.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways you can use it too. One of our early customers on the revenue forecasting, they have 3 numbers. They have what Briq forecast. They have what they forecasted for the revenue. They have what the project manager is doing actually, and then what Briq forecasts. And anytime there's more than a 10% discrepancy between those 3 numbers, they flag it.
Red flag.
Right? That's a great example of
run your business by exceptions, because if you don't, you're running every project in detail and you don't have enough hours in the day to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or people.
Yeah, or people. Okay, so let's summarize. Revenue forecasting, huge element. Revenue forecasting and backlog planning, huge element to the money workflow. Why is it important today? Why should a contractor try to do this today?
Because it's your early warning system and it's your self-driving car. Because without this, you're just flying blind into concrete walls.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's your instrumentation.
That's 100%.
It's your instrumentation. Great. Okay. Well, that's revenue forecasting for the future of work. Stay tuned for the next video.